All right, again, good morning, everyone. I thank you all for attending this little session on AT for the OT. My name is Kyle Davis. I'm an occupational therapy student at Tennessee Wesleyan. I'm completing my graduate program, and I'm soon to graduate come July. So right now I'm finishing up my last level 2 fieldwork rotation as an OT student with LTVEC, which is Little Tennessee Valley Educational Cooperative. My clinical instructor is Janice Reese. She has provided me with a lot of information on assistive technologies and has allowed me to go through the inventory here and learn about everything, which is an amazing thing to be able to do as a student. I would also like to give a shout out to Janice and the LTVE staff for educating me on all these things, introducing me to some of the children that they're working, collaborating with me from speech aspects, PT aspects, and OT. So this is the website for Little Tennessee Valley Educational Cooperative. It's called AT for Kids. Toward the end of this presentation, I'm going to briefly go over this website. It has a variety of different instructional videos. My video is actually going to be posted up on this website for anyone to review. It's also going to have links for all the different resources that I've provided throughout this video and things that I've discussed. So first I want to start off with the public law here. This is the definition for assistive technology. It defines assistive technology as any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether it is acquired off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. So I just want to tell all the OTs out there that are practicing is that assistive technology can be small things. You have low tech, no tech. You have mid-tech and high-tech, and I'm gonna go over those briefly in a little bit, but it can be as simple as a pencil grip. And this is something that you're progressing to improve the individual's pencil grip in OT practice. So this is a brief little intro. I briefly defined occupational therapy. I know there's a lot more to it, but this is just my simple little thing. Client-centered treatment plan that focuses on development, recovery, or maintaining meaningful activities and occupations for a specific client. Assistive technology is defined as a low-tech, mid-tech, or high-tech device that improves the functional independence in meaningful activities or occupations. And then, therefore, at any point in occupational therapy treatment, assistive technologies can be implemented as a stepping stone to improve the functional outcome of the specific task at hand. So in low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech, these are just some simple things that we've kind of gone over here that I've got to see at my time working here. To the left here, these are 3D printed. Each thing actually has something 3D printed on it. LTVEC got a 3D printer this past week, or past break here and toward April, and I got to play around with it and learn some interesting things. So this all the way to the left is a mouse in which we put a hole through it with a 3D printer that allowed you to hold a pencil. This kind of gives the child the ability to hold on to the mouse with it resting in their hand and using it to draw. It just helps. You help stabilize the elbow or something on the desk, and it just gives them that little bit of range of motion so they can draw. These are some grips that I had designed for a pencil and a stylus, and I have ones for marker. It just raises that pencil up off the table, makes it a little bit easier for one of the children that I'm working with pick it up. And those are both considered really no tech, low tech. And then you have your mid tech. This is an adapted mouse. This is a joystick mouse that was designed. It has 5 switches on it. The red one and the yellow one are your right and left clicks on the mouse. And then this is it being paired with a communication device such as a Tobii. And that's your high-tech end. So you have your mid-tech, which is your mouse, and you're progressing into your high-tech. So the AT for Kids Center also has a lending library. This lending library is magnificent. It's got a variety of different switches on it. These switches are your standard switches that allow you to control adapted toys and adapted devices. These are recording devices. So what you do working with a child, you can simply record yes or no to determine if it's something that they like or they don't like. Oh, sorry. You have a power link down here. This allows you to operate anything that plugs into the wall with a switch. You would pair this with a simple switch over here, and it would allow you to operate fans, lights, you name it. And then this is kind of your computer access stuff. This is stuff that we've kind of worked with here with a few children. It's an adapted keyboard, it just has bigger letters and some textures, and it's raised. And this is another variety of adapted mouses. So the two common approaches that I've seen used in assistive technology, the human assistive technology model, also known as the HAT model. This is something that we went over more in school. And then this is the one we went over briefly in school, but I really used it a lot working with Janice here at LTVEC because we do a lot within the school setting. This is the student environmental task tools. So in the HAT model, you have the human, the activity, and the content, which are all important components to consider when you're selecting the assistive technology for the individual and assessing it to make it client-centered and specific for their needs. Under activities here, you have your cognitive, your communication, your manipulation, and your mobility. Under human, you have motor, sensory, effectiveness, and then their skill level. This one's very important, especially when we're working with the children. I have a few children that we've seen over the summer that are working on wheelchairs. And we have one child that you would consider an expert, and you have one now that's learning, which is going to definitely be a novice. And then you have context, which is physical, social, cultural, and institutional. Our context mainly here that we're focusing on has been falling into the school range. That's why the SET model has been more beneficial working at LTVEC here, because it focuses more on the student and their environment being a school and some home. And then you have your assistive techs, whether it's low tech, mid tech, high tech, and you kind of start at the low tech end and work your way up to the high tech to determine, to just kind of work your way up and see if it's necessarily to have the high tech. You wouldn't want to necessarily start off at high tech. This is the SET model. This has been a great model. I've really enjoyed using this model. You can get printouts of this, which allow you to fill out each individual section with, your students' abilities. And then your environmental setting, whether it's at PE, school, anything outdoors, you can change all that around. And then your task, which is going to fall into what task are they doing? Is he playing kickball, playing with all the other kids in the gym? How is he cooperating? And then your tools, whether it is your low tech devices, which make it easier for him to, I say him, I'm referring to a student that I really worked at. The SET model fits in the best for me to understand. And for this child, we made a bowling rack and stuff so that he can roll the kickball to other students and they can kick it. So this is the 6 common school-based categories that we have addressed in the SET model. There's many more, but these are the common ones that you see in the school setting. You have your augmentative communication devices, you have your computer accessibility options, you have your adaptive classroom software, your reading and writing interventions, your general classroom instructional technologies, and switches for device adaptation. These switches, you can control a variety of things with the switches if you link it the right way. And it just allows children to engage and interact with all the other children in the classroom. So one of the key things I want to focus on here is your consideration versus evaluation. In assistive technology, and evaluation is an ongoing process for the 2 common reasons. You have the technological advances and the individual's changing needs. So all this is going to kind of lump in this, but it's important to know that first. So consideration is defined as a thought process in which one determines the most effective decision for treatment, assistive tech, approaches, and theories. Within considerations, it's important to understand that it's an experimental process in assistive technology to determine the most effective recommendation that the client has practiced. Another thing that you got to remember is it's a consideration. It might not always work. It's going to be an experimental process in which you have to decide if the student really likes it or doesn't like it, or are they going to use it. And then your evaluation in occupational therapy typically consists of gathering the current level of occupational performance and functional abilities to create a client-centered approach. So these are 4 main steps in the OT process. You have your rehab, which is kind of where we all kind of start off. And then you have remediate, accommodate, and compensate and supply. Now, the important thing in assistive technology that I've learned working at LTVEC here is assistive technology typically falls under the last 2 categories. You have your accommodate, compensate, and supply. These 2 categories hold the assistive technology because typically you're working with children that aren't necessarily going to progress. Their disease might progress and it might make it more difficult to work. So you're really focusing on accommodating and providing instruments or tools, technology, anything for this individual to, whether it's speak or interact with other individuals. So you're accommodating and compensating. So how do your diagnoses impede independence? This is a hard one for me because everyone's different. There's a slight difference in how it affects the individual's occupations, their client factors, their performance skills, and their performance patterns. There's a variety of different diseases that affect in different ways. It's important as practitioners to familiarize themselves with the specific diagnosis because, as I've said, this can impede independence through a variety of motor skills, processing skills, social skills, cognitive skills, all found in the OTPF here. This is a brief little picture of the OTPF, which also, you're going to look at this when you're looking at assistive technology as well. These are all factors that you're going to consider under the S in student, or the human, the H in the HAT model. So going into some of the children that I've been working with, I don't have a picture of him. I wasn't able to get the pictures downloaded. Chris was an individual that is moving into middle school. He's diagnosed with a bilateral genetic hand deformity, limiting his one hand to 3 fingers and his other one to about 2 fingers. And some of them had, they were lower in the joints, but they were still functional. He's made them functional. So within the OT process of transitioning to middle school, the OT has reached out to the LTVEC about assistive technologies to assist Chris with typing on his laptop and tying his shoes. So when you're following the set model here, the first thing that we did is we gathered the information from the OT, and we went back into our lending library and we selected about 5 or 6 different keyboards. We took these keyboards to meet with the OT at an OT session, and we let Chris test them. We let him decide whether or not he liked it or didn't. His feedback is very important on whether or not he's going to keep using it to make it beneficial. So the basic keyboard, this comes off of all your desktops. It has high raised keys. The problem that he was having with his laptop is that it was smaller. It was probably 15 inches across, and the keys were kind of sunk in. His tactile response on his fingers weren't very well, so hitting those keys was very difficult for him. It took him a lot longer. So he found that these raised keys become the most beneficial part. So out of that first step, we found, hey, we brought these 5 keyboards, and this is the one that best fit him. He really enjoyed it. But now you have to look at the second part of the set framework, and that's the environment. Is it right to give Chris this, 25-inch keyboard, which is a lot bigger than his whole entire laptop there, to carry around in school and have to plug in? It's not Bluetooth. You had to plug it in. Now you can get them Bluetooth, but it's still large. So that's the environmental factors. You took that in. He's going to be carrying it from class to class. He's going to carry it from school to home. We want to make something a little bit smaller for him that can fit in the computer case. So we went back with all these that we have considered, all the recommendations that he has put in place, and we found this one up at the top. This is a Logitech keyboard. The keys are not as raised as high, but they had a tactile response when you clicked it. It kind of had a click and had more of a feeling. So just by going online and searching, which we're all available to do on Google and Amazon, we found that this keyboard has the potential. It fits in the criteria of what we're looking for, which is very important when you're searching, is to determine what that criteria is. The best thing about this one is that it has a mouse pad. That mouse pad there on the right enabled Chris to not have to cover up his computer with the whole keyboard, and he could sit his computer a little bit further away and put it out front. He can control everything on the keyboard there with it feeling the way it does. And it Bluetooth, so it made it easier for him to control it. He didn't have to plug it into his laptop, and he could fit it in a computer case. Now, after learning all this and seeing how well Chris typed, he's adapted very well. He's done very good at what he's doing. We recommended a word prediction software. The best thing about these word prediction softwares is that it can cut your keystrokes in half. So he could hit 2 letters like AD, and then he can figure out what the rest of that is, whether it's going to be adapt or whatever the sentence is he's looking for. So we recommended for the next following school year, we recommended WordQ, and this is a software that you can overlay onto the internet, Google searches, anything, and it's just going to help him cut his keystrokes in half. So these are some 3D printed assisted devices. He had mentioned to his OT that he wants to learn to tie his shoes. And being able to tie your shoes, with 2 fingers or 3 fingers is even more difficult than you think. I played around with it to learn. But this is a brief little video on something that I 3D printed to help him hold the shoelaces in place. And on the back side of this square piece here, which I call a shoelace assistant or shoelace holder, is a little bit of Velcro that kind of sticks to your shoe. Most of those shoes are made of that fabric to where it will stick to. But this is a brief little video of me tying my shoe with. And I showed him, Chris, not this video, we made another one. I showed him this technique, which made it a little bit easier for him to get a grasp on it. And the OT said that they're going to try to implement it and work on tying his shoes at home. But that's a little simple thing that you can put on a keychain. You can attach to your backpack. It's something that he can carry around in public and help him tie his shoes. This next thing in the top left corner up here is a Batman book holder. I found this on a very neat website called Thingiverse, which is a link here, and then I'm going to give you a resource page at the end that's going to have all this on it. But this is a Batman book holder. You place it over your thumb, and it allows you to hold the page, keep the pages from flipping. So he can hold his book, which is this graph kind of here, by using that on his thumb, keeping the pages open. Before we went, we were thinking, how is he feeding himself? So one of the first thoughts is there anything we can do to make it easier? I also found these things on the bottom. These are your universal cuffs. I found these on Thingiverse. They're 3D printed, and then I added a piece of Velcro to the back of them, and they hold your fork and spoon. You have your right hand, your left hand. These are just really simple designs that most schools would be able to print, because schools and their STEM programs, they have 3D printers. These are some things that you can look into along with your high schools and things, and you can give them a kind of a little project to help out. This next student's Cam. This Cam he's diagnosed with a rare disease. It's called Joubert syndrome. This syndrome affects the individual by underdeveloped portions of the brain and the spinal cord. The common symptoms that we find with Cam here are lack of muscle control, his breathing patterns. He kind of gets overheated, his abnormal vision, compromised body systems, including kidneys, livers, and eyes. So a little bit more about Cam. After collaborating with the school OT, speech, physical therapist, and his parents, it was determined that they didn't want him to digress over the summer. So we found out that it'd be beneficial for him to complete a summer program that was provided by LTVEC and me. This program provided the OT services 2 days a week through the month of June. So alongside Janice and Lisa, I had spent a majority of this time working on mobility as recommended by the PT and the OT that we collaborated with, while implementing switches to operate fans, music, and toys, and a lot more. But the idea of all this is to encourage Cam to use these switches to improve his communication and his access. We want to start off with these simple switches and get him used to them so that we can give him a yes or no. But one of the main things that you had to consider with Cam that I don't think I really mentioned is his vision. We're not sure, his parents aren't sure what kind of vision he has. Sometimes he attends, sometimes he doesn't. We don't know if he has peripheral or non-peripheral. This is a set framework. So this is one of the easiest things to kind of fill out as you go. Every session, every time you meet the child, you're going to find something new about them. This just gives you a way of recording it, and it helps you select the right tools for the situation that need. So I'm going to fill out these with the next 4 children that I'm going to go over. So for the set framework, the student aspect, I'm just going to keep it brief here. The thing that we considered was his vision, his cognition, he's nonverbal, and we're trying to figure out how we can make him communicate instead of one of the hardest things to do with him is when he does get frustrated, he kind of self-inflicts pain to himself. He'll hit himself or bang his head against the floor if he's laying on the floor. And we're trying to gear that out of him. We're trying to lead to, hey, this means I'm over, I'm done with it. You have a switch to your right, and it'll always be there to his right due to his vision. It says, I'm done. The second thing is your environment. The environment that we worked at Cam with was at the school, and we talked to his parents about working at home. So one of the main things at the school is kind of the repetition. He keeps coming. So he started becoming more excited about coming and working with me. And we're seeing him at the same spot. And this is keeping him in that school environment, which is going to be great for when he attends school come August. The task that we're focusing on is mobility and switch adaptation, which eventually we hope will improve his access, his communication. And then the tools, we've used switches, we've used a gait trainer, we've used a modified Riften chair, in which Janice and I had worked on before summer started, so we can provide him with a sense of mobility. So this is one of the toys. This toy is very, very neat. His mom sent us this toy. It has a vibration and it's very soft. Cam finds this soothing. So this toy has been adapted. This here is a switch plug-in. It's a female socket and you have the male socket. This is a PAL pad. So the PAL pad is a very interesting switch. They come in a variety of different sizes, but they typically take less than a pound to work. You can kind of rub your finger over it and it would vibrate. So what I had done is I put a piece of foam up here above my finger and I put it in here. You can kind of see he's a little square here. That's the pad. But the foam piece allows Cam to hug it, push it away, and it will cut on. This interrupts the on-off switch. So he's able to hug it, move it around, and it'll start vibrating, something that he can do on his own to calm him down. This is the modified Riften chair. So what we did is we took this Riften chair here, we sawed off the legs a little bit, made them to where they're just barely off the ground. They're about 1/4 to 1/2 inch off the ground. And then we added these bars across the back. These bars across the back are anti-tipping bars. Again, they're 1/4, 1/2 inch off the ground so that they can't go forward or go back and tip and catch on things. So this is a brief video. I collaborated with the physical therapist, and one of the things that she really wanted to work on was putting him in standers and his gait trainer. At the beginning of the year, he had difficulty going in the gait trainer. He's kind of suspended. It felt uncomfortable to him. So we adapted this chair as a step up to going to the gait trainer. So through the month that I was working with him 2 days a week, I started off with this Riften chair. I implemented it about 2 weeks before school ended. And his aide, Miss Penny, which has given us a ton of information that follows under the student aspect of the SET framework. And that information that she's provided has allowed us to collaborate with his parents and stuff and determine ways to make him mobile. And like I said, this is a stepping stone. So right here, I'm focusing on putting his feet on the floor. This is a brief little video. I just kind of had him rocking here. This is the first time that I'd worked in the chair with him, about 2 weeks before summer started. And I'm just focusing on getting him to push. I want him to push through it. I want him to know that the floor is there. It's something that he hasn't had a feeling of. If you see in this picture here, you see how his legs are kind of suspended. That's because he's been sitting up in a wheelchair. His feet have never been able to touch the ground. But by the end of, my month of working with him, you put Cam in this chair. His parents have been implementing it at the house, which has been amazing. He starts pushing around. He immediately knows where the ground is. He will start doing circles. He run around in it for 10, 15 minutes, and then he'll need a break because he gets overheated. But starting off with the Riften chair here, this is how I made him work. This is the reward. This is one thing that Cam absolutely loves to do. So anytime he starts to get a little frustrated, we'll be like, okay, let's do 3 more of these pushes, Cam, and then we'll have some fun and we'll spin. This is a video of him spinning. It's one of the favorite things he loved to do, especially outside. Not so much inside, but the inside, we used a fan, which I'm going to show here next. This is his reward for working inside with me. So this is a fan. This is linked to a PowerLink. Like I described the PowerLink on a past page. PowerLink's awesome because you connect anything that's 110 volts into it, and you can control it with this switch here. He really liked the texture of the switch, so we stuck with it. This is a brief video of him after. This is more of a reward, but at the same time, it's a reward that we're working on switch activation, which is going to be beneficial for progressing to communication and everything in the future. So in this video, if you notice the position that I have the switch, we're not sure of his vision. So with any switch, I'm trying to put it up against his belly. I like to touch his belly and be like, hey, Cam, this is where your switch is. I want him to know where it's at. So when we progress to multiple switches, we're going to kind of do the same thing. Hey, Cam, this is where this switch is. You're going to put it more on the right side or the left side. This is an adapted toy. Again, I'm showing it to him. He can't, his vision is, we're not sure. So I have this toy here. I'm letting him feel it. It makes noises when he touches the head and spins it like that. I've connected it to the switch. This allows him to control it by pushing the switch. You can see he's a little frustrated here. That's because we've been working on moving around in the Riften chair. And moving around the Riften chair, you can see his legs are still a little bit red. It kind of overheats him. He overheats a little bit quick. And when he's overheating, he's uncomfortable. And he's not very happy. So that's why we go back to the fan here at the end of this video. So the Riften chair, we said that it was progressing to the gait trainer. This is the gait trainer that the physical therapist had recommended we try to put him in. The idea of putting him in this gait trainer is to get him used to it. So for the upcoming school year, it'll be a little bit easier for the physical therapist to work with the gait trainer with. We put him in this gait trainer. We did a variety of switch activations. We did some rolling around the hallways. And again, I'm starting off slow. We're doing more of a pushing backwards. So in this gait trainer, he's doing kind of what's very similar to what he does in his Riften chair, is he just pushes backwards and he kind of rocks. And this is giving him that little bit of weight bearing that he has and that sense of mobility. He really, really enjoyed it. This is one of my favorite videos on this whole entire PowerPoint. This is an iPad with a variety of interactive apps that we have installed to encourage switch activation. Cam, we recently found out, loves music. He loves his mother singing to him, and he loves playing music on the iPad. So if you watch closely here toward the end of this video, I'm gonna, the switch isn't necessarily touching him in the stomach like I've been implementing with everything else. We're trying to get him to figure out that it's in front of him, but I'm gonna reach in here and I'm gonna tell him in a minute that, hey, this is where your switch is, Cam, and watch how he reaches for it. So that's one of the things that we've really been working on, is trying to get him to identify where it's at. And that's gonna be progression. And then the last thing that we've implemented here, LTVEC had this out in the storage unit. This is for a Go Baby Go project that they have done. This was provided to a child that used it, and when they finished with it, he outgrew it. They donated it back to LTVEC. This is a brief video of him controlling it. There's a control here. It's like a lever arm. You can pull it any way. You can push it away, and this drives the cart. Now, the only thing that we found out is that this cart needs wheelie bars. It goes pretty quick right off the bat. This arm right here, his mother is standing off to the side over here and steering it. So all he has to do is pull it, and she's going to steer for us. You can see the joy that he's had. He likes that sense of mobility. And again, you look at his legs here, they are suspended. He's not necessarily reaching for the ground at this time. This is another one, how it goes pretty quick, and you can see how he's playing with it. He's enjoying it. All righty, so this is our next student that we're working with. This is Murphy. Janice has been working with Murphy since he was like 4 years old. It's been a very long time, so she has a lot of passion when working with Murphy. Murphy is a teenager that is diagnosed with arthrogryposis. Arthrogryposis is a diagnosis that causes multiple joint contractures and stiffness in all of his extremities. If you can kind of see him here, you can kind of see that he's really straightened out like a board, and his arms over here are rotated. But they're permanent. They're kind of stuck there. So this is kind of how he sits. And you learn, filling out the set framework, you can learn a bunch of different things about him just by talking to him. This is his brother over here to the side, and figuring out what he likes and doesn't like. So when referring back to the set framework, under student, we find, his range of motion. What can he operate easiest? And that happens to be his right foot. And I have a ton of videos I'm going to show you, which is amazing, truly amazing what he can do with his right foot. And then he is nonverbal, so he does require augmentative communication, which is a Toby in his aspects. He uses eye gaze, but he's very bright. He's very quick, and we'll learn through going through these slides what he actually can do. The environment that has just taken place has been at school and home, and another thing that we had to consider is COVID put him homebound, which made it very difficult on his learning and keeping up with everything. And that's just one factor that you're going to kind of apply into the environment and student, is how COVID has affected that. The task that we focus on is communication and computer access. One of the key things that we focus on with him was computer access. We want him to be able to complete school tasks on his computer and stuff, and we're progressing to that. The tools, we used an adaptive mouse and we used different AAC devices. So before I came on, Janice and the speech therapist had been working on finding the right AAC device. This is using a grid pad and also is known as a neuro node. This right here is it reads your muscle contractions, your muscle movements, and it allows them to control with it. This video kind of shows you here briefly how it works. He's interested in it, but he's not. We fill out our set framework and we determine, is this what he needs? So it's going to pan over here to his foot, and you'll see how the neuro node works. That right leg is the one he has the most control over. All right, this is how we've learned so much about Murphy. We found out that you do not challenge him in WWE or any PlayStation 4 game. This is a brief video of what we learned, how well he operates this. He is actually using word prediction on the PS4 in this video by using the joysticks and the buttons with his right toe. This is him operating it. And we're going to pan over here. We had just gotten here. He just finished playing a game with his friends in which he communicates on the system with. Here he said, "Hey, how are you doing?" That he typed this all up in his word prediction software on the PS4 controller. So after they told us this and we started looking at it, that changed the whole entire aspect of what are we looking for in the communication device for him. One thing that I considered with the PlayStation 4 controller is, how is he hitting those buttons on the back? He really wasn't. And that limits you when you're playing video games, especially the fighting ones that he really loves to play. Every button has a purpose. This is a 3D printed adaptation that I found on Thingiverse that I slightly modified for a PS4 controller. This allows him to push on the top down here with his toe and hit these trigger buttons, which are hard for him to use otherwise. And these are just a few pictures of how I did it, mainly held together with Velcro, which is a great thing in assistive tech. And then this is the adapted Bluetooth mouse. Now, finding out that he played this controller, how well he used the joystick, how he was able to run around with it and do everything, we went through some extensive research. It took me and Janice probably, two days going through a variety of different adapted mouses to find the right one, the right joystick, the low profile one that we would like for him to operate in Bluetooth. This was a Bluetooth Blue Line joystick controller mouse. It has 5 settings, 5 ways that you can adapt it. So these buttons currently, at the time when we first got it, this is your right click and your left click on your regular mouse. However, I was able to adapt that to use switches, and there's a plug-in port down here, a female port for a switch, and I 3D printed this base here to hold the switches up to where he could control, click, and it worked out great for him to be able to control the mouse. So these are some videos here. Wrong one. They're all playing. This is him playing he's actually playing a game with Charles here. This is how he operates, how well he operates. He's using the top triggers with it. This is me testing out. So he currently has a Tobii device, and we're looking into getting him a new one current at the time. This is me testing out this Bluetooth mouse to ensure that it will work with his Tobii device and his communication apps. And you notice, you got your mouse, you're scrolling around, and then I have your right click and your left click, or you can change them to all kinds of things, whether it's click and drag or anything else. This here is a communication device. This is a Tobii. We were able to hook it up to this Tobii. This is Bluetooth. This is the same one. And we downloaded his file to this Tobii. This is him operating it. He's trying to add his friends to another square up here on this communication device. He's got Xbox or PlayStation friends that he's been communicating with for a very long time. He's been able to message them and everything with word prediction on the PS4, and it has just been amazing for him to communicate with the children like that. But we met with him twice going over using this mouse on his Tobii, and it has just been amazing for him. He's really enjoyed having this opportunity, and the excitement and the time that he's messed around with this mouse is something that we want to add to his next augmented communication device. This is Kaylee. Kaylee is a future kindergartner that was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. It's a congenital disorder that affects muscle tone, posture, and many of you guys have seen it. It has a variety of symptoms. Kaylee's common symptoms are her left side is slightly neglected. She has difficulty with vision on the left side. We are not sure if it's a peripheral thing. It's to be determined. But this is her. She's been working. This next page will tell us that. She's currently attending school throughout the summer for OT and PT services, and on top of that, she has additional outpatient OT services and PT services. The outpatient facility has been working with Pete Capel on mobility. We've been working on trying to get her in a wheelchair, a power wheelchair, to improve her mobility around the school, at home, and give her that sense of freedom. The outpatient sessions have been implementing this power wheelchair with assistive technology from Pete Capel. Pete has provided electric wheelchairs through different companies. He currently works with Go Baby Go, which is going to be on a further screen here. And then this summer, we have brought the wheelchairs to school with Pete. He's brought a few different ones for us to work on. So we're looking at the SET framework for here. We have vision that would fall under the student, and then we're trying to encourage helper hand activity. Some of the OT goals that they've been working with are using that helper hand, which is her left hand in this case. The environment, we have school, home, and community. Her mom takes her all kinds of places, and they want this wheelchair to be something that she uses in the future. The task that we've really focused on is her mobility in a power wheelchair, as well as her safety and safety for others. We don't want to put her in a power wheelchair and send her to a school that has hallways full of children. And then the tools, you have your electric wheelchair and your adaptive equipment. This is the Go Baby Go. There's a link embedded here. Pete Capel has run it. They take a whole bunch of different electric 12-volt cars and stuff, and they adapt them to specific needs of an individual to allow them to go. So this is a brief video. One of the things that Pete had been working on at the outpatient facility is that the chair are typically proportional. This is a proportional device. This allows you to go 360 degrees to kind of control your chair, and you kind of do it all in one swell movement. Well, it seemed to be too much for her at the beginning. So this is his stepping stone that he had created to progress her up to the proportional wheelchair. This current switch that she is using only goes forward, backwards, right, and left. So it only gives her that sense of when she has to turn, she has to stop, and then she has to go right some. This is the stepping stone that Pete had designed to progress to this. Now I've been working with her. I've seen her 4 or 5 times. By the last session that I saw her, we were using a proportional device. We just had to put it on a slower setting, and she's been operating it very, very well. These are the different hand mounts that you can get. This one's nice because it kind of relaxes your arm. And then one of the coolest things is that wheelchairs put you on a level playing field for soccer and hockey. These children, you can look up all kinds of YouTube videos and stuff, and it's amazing how well individuals operate an electric wheelchair. The last student, this is Elliot. I only got to work with Elliot for like 2 weeks at the end of school there. He's very, very bright. He's a kindergartner that's also diagnosed with arthrogryposis. His arthrogryposis hasn't seized up his arms and everything as much as Murphy's, but it is progressive. His resource teacher had reached out to us about implementing a few things assistive technology wise in the classroom and in PE so that he can participate with all the other children. This is a little ramp that LTVEC donated to the school. It's a design like a bowling ramp, but it will not hold a bowling ball. This is more for like a kickball. So when all the other classmates are playing kickball, guess who our designated pitcher is? It's going to be Elliot. Elliot here, he is able to fling his arm up there and hit the ball. I've seen him push buttons on an elevator and a variety of other things. And then there's a huge concrete surface out there. This is a PVC pipe with a 3D printed chalk holder on the end of it, and allows him to put the chalk in it, tighten it up, and now he can draw with his wheelchair. So following the set framework for Elliot here, his cognition, he is verbal. He has that limited range of motion. He's unable to really move his wrists. They're kind of set in place, and his elbows, so they're kind of straightened out, but he does have that little bit of shoulder movement. He is an amazing wheelchair operator. He's been in a wheelchair for 3 years or so. And he's very, very well. I've met with him on the playground, and I have placed out cones that were nearly the width of his wheelchair there, and he's able to maneuver through them. So it was really good for him. His environment, we really focused on school. They really want to focus on all his extracurricular activities, such as art class and everything, and adapting toys and stuff for him to participate in art class. And one of the key things the teacher recommended was, I need something to help him raise his arm. A device that I'm going to show you a little bit later, something simple that I made for him to raise his hand in class because he can't get his arm up enough, and the teacher doesn't necessarily want him speaking out and yelling, saying, hey, I have a question. So the task that we focused on was, PE, and then his in-class participation. And then the tools that we used are our hand raiser, our ball ramp, chalk arm, and other items. So this is his school OT task. The OT had been really working on him with picking up markers. Over here, I have a video of him picking them up. I'm going to show you how he does it. And then he writes his name. And then she's been using adaptive scissors to cut out pictures and glue them on. This is a brief video of him coloring. And this is where those adapted pencil grips came in that I showed on one of my front pages. I designed these so that he can pick up a marker or a pencil or a stylus up off the table. It raises it a little bit higher for him. He currently kind of throws his hand over and picks up a pencil or a pen like this. And this is a video of him using his adaptive scissors. The OT really encouraged him to do as much as he can. However, they have the same adaptive scissors in his classroom, and he does get tired with using his shoulder and his arm bearing weight here. I've seen him use his chin. I've seen him play games on his iPad with his nose. He's really adapted in a whole bunch of different ways. It's just really neat. But these were some of the recommendations that we added, and we mentioned to the OT. This is your simple marker holder. You can glue these caps in, or some of them are designed to where they're really tight when they go in. So it kind of allows him, for instead of flipping his arm over to grab the pencil, it allows him to just kind of sit his hand on it and pop the pencil out or marker out. And then these are the grips I was telling you about. So this is very interesting. So these are from the Dollar Tree. This is your knitting stick, knitting needles. This is some super glue, and this is just a simple suction cup. So how I made this is I cut this hook off the suction cup, drilled a hole in these, made it all the right height, and I added a little flag to it. This is a video of me using it. I didn't get to get a video of him using it in the classroom, but his aide mentioned that he had been doing very well with it, and his teacher really liked it because he didn't have to use as much energy to flop his arm up to try to raise it high enough, and he didn't have to speak up in class. So you simply, and the weight of the flag will carry it back down. You simply just kind of roll your hand over it. It raises the flag high enough. It was a visual aspect, and the teacher will be able to see it. And this is my last slide here. One of his STEM classes, they were using music. And the first thing was that he has a hard time holding all these because he can't close his fingers. So we came up with a little thing. You see all these are typically kind of the same size. We took a nice neoprene wrist brace, and we cut it to where the portion was across his hand. I wish I had a picture of it, but I did not get to take a picture of it before he left school. And we put 2 holes in it. These holes were flexible because it was neoprene, so you can put larger items in it. And this just allowed him to put it in his arm. Yes, he could hold his arm down and just shake his shoulder, and he'd be able to use all of these devices. He'd be able to use the handbells. His favorite was the maracas or the shakers, the egg shakers. And he was able to participate in music class with all these. So if you have any questions, I'm going to stick around for a little bit, and I'll answer any of them if you have them in the chat box. And then these are further questions. If you think of something later, feel free to contact either me at Tennessee Wesleyan here or Janice at the AT Center. I know Janice has incorporated a certificate link here. This is your certificate link down at the bottom, and I'll show you how that works. Here in the post. Thank you, Ms. Rebecca, Dr. Rebecca. And this is not all the resources that I have. I'm also going to attach a Word folder to the website. We're going to, let me share my screen here. So these are all the resources that I have. There are many more that we can add to it. If y'all have any resources that you'd like me to add, you can put them in the text box. This is a variety of different websites that go over any kind of assistive technology devices that I've learned about here at LTVEC. You have your eye gaze websites, your mounting systems, you have all kinds of softwares that you can use. Bookshare is another very good one that I forgot to mention for Chris or other children that qualify like Elliot. Bookshare, it allows all these children to get the books for free as long as they qualify for it. And it's all iPad-based, computer-based. It allows you to get them digitally. And that avoids having to carry around the books in a wheelchair, have difficulty getting to them and flipping the pages. And then there's a variety of communication apps from Don Johnson, accessibility apps. This is brief, little 3D printing. Thingiverse gives you a ton of ideas that you can print from. I printed a ton of stuff from it. And then Prusa 3D printing is the type of printer that we have. And it has just been amazing because he provides so many instructional videos on how to operate that 3D printer and what you can do to it. And then I have one more thing to show you guys. This is the AT for Kids website. This video will be posted under AT training video tutorials. I'm gonna have it posted under here with my resources and everything. You can rewatch the video if you feel you need to, or you can get my resource page, which is going to be a Word page that's going to be attached to it all. Again, I would like to thank everyone for listening and pay attention to me while I'm presenting on this. If you have any questions, I'm gonna stick around for a little bit longer and I'll answer any questions that you have in the chat. Thanks, everyone.